In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the radiator support on this Volkswagen GTI. Let's get into it. Before you start the job, you want to make sure that you bring the vehicle to a local shop to have the refrigerant removed from the system. I'm going to disconnect the battery, slide the cover off using a 10mm socket. Loosen up the terminal, slide that off and out of the way. We're going to remove these screws up on top. Use a T25 socket. Just grab the grill and just slide it forward. Just pull straight out. It just clips in underneath. Take these screws out, use a T25 socket. We're going to remove this shield right here. Use a T25 socket, and all around the outside, you're going to take those screws out. There's a couple missing here. Grab the shield and just slide it back. Using a T25 socket, these screws under here, we want to take all of those out. There should be one right there. That's loose. Remove the wheel. We're going to use a 17mm socket. Take the lug bolts out. I'm just going to hold the wheel on just so it doesn't fall. Then grab the wheel and slide it off. You can remove the wheel. It makes it a little bit easier, but you don't necessarily have to. You could just turn the wheel to the side. And there's going to be a cover right here. You want to pop that off. Underneath, you just grab it and it just pops out. And you can access the fog light. Just disconnect the connector on the fog light. Push down on the tab. It slides out. Then there's another light for the side marker. You grab that wire. There's a retainer there. Slide that out. Then where the light socket goes in, just want to slide it out, it just pulls out. Just set that aside. And there's some screws, you want to take those out. Use a T25 socket. There's two right there. Should be one right there. Another one right there. And using the same T25 socket, there's a screw going up here. Take that screw out. Grab the bumper. And just pull it outward. You want to do the same on the other side. And grab the bumper, and slide it forward. If your vehicle has headlight washers, you may have some lines that you have to take off. This vehicle does not. We're going to take these two screws out up top, use a T30 socket. This screw going in from the front, use a T30 socket. And right here, there's another screw. You want to take that one out as well. On our vehicle, it's just spinning, so instead, we're going to take these three screws out on the side. We're using a T25 socket to take these screws out. In here, there's a little tab. You're going to use a straight blade screwdriver. Just slide that tab back, and you can grab the light assembly. And it will slide out, pull it outwards. We're going to disconnect the connectors on the back. And we'll disconnect the connector right here. Just push on the tab, and just slide it back. Just like that. And we'll do the same on the other side. We're going to disconnect the connector for the coolant fans. There's a little lock tab. Push up on that. If you need to, you can use the pick underneath. Slide that connector off. Now we're going to drain the coolant system. This vehicle does not have a drain in the radiator, so we're going to take off the lower radiator hose. You're going to use a pick and slide this clip up. After you slide that up, then you can grab the hose and just slide it back. Make sure you have a drain bucket underneath to catch all the coolant. Once the coolant's drained out, we can take off the intercooler pipe. Just use a straight blade screwdriver. Just pop this clip. You can take that off completely if you want. And slide that out. We're going to take this side intercooler pipe off. Just use a straight blade screwdriver or a pick. Just take the clip off, out of the way. Grab the pipe and slide it back. We're going to take the two AC lines off. There shouldn't be any pressure in there because you had the refrigerant removed already. Use a T45 socket. Using a T45, you can take those out. Take that screw out and the other one. Very carefully. There shouldn't be any refrigerant in there. Let's rock this back and forth. Gonna give it a tap with a hammer. Shouldn't have to do this. These are on there pretty tight. I'm just gonna use some pliers and just wiggle it back and forth. Slide that off. Do the same with the other one. So you gotta wiggle it back and forth. You can't wiggle it side to side because there is a pin. There we go. Those are disconnected. We're going to remove the air box. Yours may look slightly different, but the procedure is going to be very similar. Disconnect the connector for the mass airflow sensor. Just push on the tab, slide that up, out of the way. And we're going to loosen up this worm clamp here. Use a 7mm socket. Slide that up. Disconnect the two pipes. Just like that. It's out of the way. Now we're gonna have two bolts down there and a bolt over here. Using a 10mm socket, take the bolt off back here. And there's another one over here. Take those out. Let's just use a magnet to get those. And there's a screw in here. Use a T30 socket. Take this out. You may have two bolts on the side that you have to take out with a T20 socket. Take those two out. Grab the air box, and it slides right out. The coolant hose right here. Just want to pop that off, just like down below. Just use a straight blade screwdriver, slide the clip up, and it slides right out. I'm gonna disconnect this connector right here. It's for the airbag sensors. Just push down on the lock and then down on the tab. Disconnect the other side as well. There we go. Disconnect that. Disconnect the connector here. There's a little retainer. Just push down on the pin on the retainer. You could even use some needle nose pliers to do that, or a pick. And we'll disconnect the connector. Just push down on that tab. There we go. Disconnect that. You should just be able to push down on the tab. Remove this bracket, use the T30 socket. Take these 3 bolts out. Then on the driver's side, we have the hood cable. You want to pop that off. Just slides off. We're going to disconnect the hood cable. There's a little cover here. Just pop the cover up, just using a pick. You can see, slide the cable up. There's a little ball on the end. And just slide the ball out. That disconnects that. Take this bracket off, same T30 socket. For the outside air temp sensor, disconnect the connector. Just push down on the tab, slide the wire out of the way. And slide that out of the retainer. Using a 16mm socket, take these bolts out. Just 4 on each side. I'll just leave a couple threads on one of the bolts just so it doesn't fall completely. I'll do the other side as well. I'll just take those last 2 bolts out. There we go. And it slides right off. Right here, we're going to remove these bolts. There's one on this side, one on the other. Use a T30 socket. I'm just going to hold the radiator behind it from falling. Take that out. On the other side, tip it down. You can grab the radiator, condenser, and the intercooler with the fans, tip it up, and then you want to just slide it up. There's a couple feet holding it in. Set that aside. Be careful with this. There's a little bracket right here that's pretty fragile. If you drop this, that could break off. Now we're going to take these bolts out and these 2. Use the T30 socket. One on the bottom. And the same with the other side. And just grab this bracket, it slides off. And remove this bolt right here. Same T30 socket. For the hood latch, underneath, we're going to bring the cable through. And this bracket's not going to fit through the hole, so you're going to take the bracket off. Just slide that off. There is a wire here. Take the wire off the retainers. Wire's going to come up. Might have to pop the bracket off the wire. And slide the cable through, just like that. And on the side, there's these panels. Just want to push the little clips. Those slide off. Do the same on the other side. That slides off. Now we're going to take off the impact sensors, use a T30 socket. Loosen those up. Those off. Just be careful, don't drop them. And the same on the other side. That slides off. And at the base where the radiator feet sit in, pop those out. Now put these bushings in, slide those in place. That's good. Take the impact sensors, slide those in place. Get those started. We're going to torque that to 72 inch-pounds. Do the same on the other side. And 72 inch-pounds. That's good. Slide the hood latch cable right through. The wire is going to go down in there. Same way it came out. Get this bolt started. And we're not going to snug that down completely until we get the other bracket on. Underneath, slide the wire into the retainers. That through there, and the cable is going to go through as well. Put this bracket back on the cable. The other bracket for the wiring harness right there that clips on. Now we're going to put these side air deflectors on, line those up, lock those in place. Do the same on this side, line it up, lock it in place. Now flip this over. Remember, you don't want to break that tab on the side. Take a block of wood. Lay it on a block of wood so that doesn't break. Slide this bracket in place. And get the bolt started. You may have to make adjustments to this later. And get all the side bolts in. Those are all in place. We'll tighten these down. You could tighten that other bolt down as well. Slide the radiator and the condenser in place. Make sure the feet go in to those bushings down below first. It's all lined up. Snug that down and do the same on the other side. Good. Now slide this in place. Take the bolts. Have a couple bolts in your hand so that you can get it in, get it started. Get the other bolts in. Try to line this up. You can see where the bolts were when you took it apart. Get that snugged up on that side and do the same on the other side. And you can tighten the rest of them down. We're going to take this piece, latch the cable in, slide the ball, it goes in and it twists. Get that lined up just like that. And there's the cover. We want to put the cover on. Before we put the cover on, you want to just close the hood and make sure everything lines up. Sure the hood looks like it lines up with the fenders. Looks good. And you can just pop the hood from inside the car. You can make any adjustments you need to the latch or even the front bumper. I'll put this cover on. I take this connector. It's going to slide into the bracket. You can connect that connector. That's good. And take this bracket and we'll slide the hood latch into the bracket or hood cable. You go there. Line this up, get the bolts started. Snug those down. And we'll put the bracket on the other side. Connect these wires. Line it up, lock it in place. Do the same on the other side. That's good. The upper radiator hose, make sure you re-engage the lock. Line that up. Push that on. Now take the air box, line that up. If you have the band clamp, you want to put that back over. Just slide it in place. And get the bolts started. And the other bolt that goes right above the radiator. Tighten the worm clamp down. Just make sure it's lined up. That's good. And connect the mass airflow sensor. Lock it in place. Now the wire for the outside air temp sensor. Slide it through. And connect the connector. Lock that down and push the wire into the retainer right there. Put the AC lines back in place. It's a good idea to replace the O-rings. If they're in good shape, you can just put a little oil on them, AC oil. Line those up, push those in. If you struggled taking this up, you want to clean that pin up a little bit. Just a little bit of sandpaper or some emery cloth. Get that lined up. That's good. I'll put the bolts in, get those started. And I'll tighten these down. And we'll torque these to 10 foot-pounds. That's good. And we'll take this clamp, slide it over, get that in position. And slide the hose right in place. Make sure it locks down. That's good. Now we'll connect the lower radiator hose, push down on the lock. Line that up, that's good. Then you can connect the connector for the fans. Line that up. Push down on the lock. And slide that into the bracket. Now we'll put this clamp on. Line it up, start at the top and work your way down. Or start at the bottom. Just line it up in the groove. That looks good. And slide the pipe in, lock it down. And plug in the connector. Line up the headlight and get the bolts started. And the screws on the side. Now tighten down the bolts. And we'll do the same on the other side. Slide the bumper over in place. The sides lined up. Now I'll put the screws in. Take the wires. I'm going to connect the light. It's the side marker. Line that up. Just push that in. And then the retainer, the wire retainer. Slide that in place. And the connector for the fog light. Line that up. Lock that down. Then you can put that cover back on, put the wheel on, and do the same on the other side. Put these screws in, get these lined up. Snug those down. And slide this lower shield on. And get the screws started. Tighten those down. Should be three more on this side and 4 on the other. I'll put the wheel on. Line it up. Take the lug bolt, get that started. Snug those down. Now I'm going to torque the lug bolts to 90 foot-pounds in a cross pattern to tighten the wheel down evenly. Just go around again, double check. Put these screws in, snug those down. Take the grill, line it up, push the bottom in, lock that in place, and put the screws in, tighten those down. After you're done the job, you can bring the vehicle back to the shop that you had the refrigerant removed and have it recharged. Now we're going to connect the battery, take the cover off, put the negative terminal on, using a 10mm socket, snug it down, give it a wiggle, make sure it's tight, take the cover, slide that in the back, lock it down. Using the appropriate type of coolant, I'm going to fill it up. All right, when it's full, take the funnel out. You can start the vehicle, run the vehicle for about 15 to 20 minutes, monitoring the engine, making sure it's not overheating. After it has completely warmed up to operating temperature, shut the vehicle down, let it cool down, and then adjust your coolant level accordingly.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.